In a free market economy, individual decisions propel the economy forward through principles like supply and demand and the invisible hand. But what do you get when the government controls everything in an economy? From production to resource development to where the next grocery store should go. We call this a command economy, and the biggest example was the Soviet Union and its satellite states. First, let's take a look at an economic spectrum. On the right, we have laissez-faire capitalist economics, as envisioned by Adam Smith and other classical economists. This is characterized by economic freedom through free markets, private property, and individualism. Moving towards the left, we get more into mixed economic systems, where the government gets progressively more involved in order to regulate a capitalist economy and provide services. These days, most countries in the world will fall somewhere in the middle here in this mixed economy middle part of the spectrum. As we move further to the left, there's progressively more government involvement until we get total government control of the economy, or what we call a command economy that's characterized by central planning. For this reason, command economies are also sometimes called centrally planned economies. This style of economy places more emphasis on public ownership and collectivism. The idea that these central decisions are made for the common good of society as a whole. How does all of this work? Well, consider how our governments decide where to put the next public school or fire station. Those decisions are typically made based on government planning related to population and the needs of different communities. Now picture that same model being applied to everything else in an economy. Where the next grocery should go? Government decision. What should be produced by industries and manufacturing? Government decision. You get the picture. Now, all of these economic functions are owned by the government, so there's no competition, and decisions aren't made through supply and demand like they would be in a market economy, but through government research and planning. One of the biggest examples of a command economy in action was the Soviet Union. When Vladimir Lenin and the Bolsheviks took control of Russia in 1917, they had a war on their hands, the First World War, and shortly after, the Russian Civil War. Lenin nationalized the Russian economy under a policy called war communism in order to try and ensure the success of the war effort. After the Civil War, Lenin embarked on a reimagining of the economy under what he called the New Economic Policy, or NEP. Lenin felt the harsh nationalization under war communism was something that Russia wasn't quite ready for and maybe went a little bit too far. So under the NEP, private small businesses were reintroduced and farmers were allowed to sell their surplus grain for a profit. After Lenin's death, his successor, Joseph Stalin, felt that this industrialization was going too slow, and he reintroduced full command economy principles under successive 5-year plans. These were very strict plans with ambitious targets, and the penalties for resisting policies or not meeting these targets were harsh. Stalin's approach can be summarized by a quotation I remember learning in high school, though Stalin probably never said it, and the origins are a little murky. If anybody does know the origins of this quote, you can let me know in the comments. But the quote is that you can't make an omelet without breaking a few eggs, right? The ends justify the means, even if there's a cost associated with meeting these ambitious goals of Stalin's 5-year plans. What did work in these 5-year plans was the rapid industrialization of the Soviet Union's economy. Oil and steel production especially increased dramatically, and the Soviet Union was catching up to the industrialization levels of the rest of Europe. Less successful was the policy of the collectivization of farms, where private, individually owned farms were combined to form these massive public collective farms. As you can imagine, these farmers who were forced to give up their land weren't all happy about it. And this collectivization policy was met with widespread resistance, as these farmers didn't want to just give up their livelihoods. This resistance was met with the death of millions through famine and was one of the worst tragedies of the 20th century, and something that could be the topic of its own video. Many farmers and others who resisted Stalin's policies were sent to work camps called GULACS. According to historian Norman Davies, by 1939, the Gulag was the largest employer in Europe. Its prisoner employees, the zeks, who were systematically starved and overworked in Arctic conditions, had an average life expectancy of 1 winter. Innocent victims were rounded up in their homes and villages. Others were charged with imaginary offenses of sabotage, treason, or espionage, and tortured into confession. The short-term economic results, however, were impressive. And at the 17th Party Congress in 1934, Stalin shared the industrial output successes with the Soviet Union. When the capitalist states were in the middle of the Great Depression and their output was decreasing, the Soviet Union was thriving. Now, let's remember to take these stats with a grain of salt. After all, the Soviet Union was trying to sell the successes of its ideology in comparison to its Western neighbors. But also, it's hard to call it a success when millions are dying or sent to gulags as a result. After Stalin, the extreme repression relaxed, but the command economy continued under the Soviet Central Planning Committee, also known as Gosplan. They continued setting targets through 5-year plans and led the Soviet economy throughout the Cold War. Over time, the Soviet economy stagnated. Perhaps one of the best examples of this stagnation is a car produced in the Soviet sphere country of East Germany, the Trabant. This is what a Trabant looked like in 1963. And this is what the Trabant 1.1 looked like when it was produced in 1991. As you can see, very little changed in 30 years. This was seen all over the Soviet economy, through stagnation and even the inability of the Soviet economy to produce enough supply to meet the demand of people who needed it. In the 1980s, Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev introduced the policies of glasnost and perestroika that aimed to bring in some free market principles into the Soviet economy. These programs brought foreign investment and competition and welcomed American corporations like McDonald's and Coca-Cola. This all proved too little too late, however, and shortly after, the Soviet Union collapsed in part due to this economic stagnation that just couldn't keep up with the growth in the West. So, what do we make of a command economy versus a laissez-faire free market economy? Through the Industrial Revolution and the Great Depression, we've seen that too much economic freedom in capitalism can also lead to issues like child labor. And through the Soviet experiment with command economics, we've seen other issues and an overall unsustainability. Like the Soviet Union under Gorbachev, China today operates under a command economy but understands the importance of bringing in some of these free market principles for economic growth. On the capitalist side, many still argue that there's still too much economic freedom and government needs to get more involved to close the gap between the rich and poor. So, one of the big economic questions today is where to find that right balance of government involvement and economic freedom. Different countries apply these principles in very different ways. Where do you think the right balance lies? With that, thank you so much for watching. If you learned something today, give this video a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you again next time.